Podzing, AP, what do you think about rascals? That's pretty insulting.
Pascals Wager.
AP, what do you think about Pascals Wager now? You have recently expressed similar sentiments, but in the past you have called it foolish. David, do you remember a few days ago I sent you a message in which I told you, what do you think about this argument?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think what I expressed to you was kind of similar in a way to Pascal's Wager, or do you think it was different?
Some of the stuff you've been saying in recent months is similar to Pascal's wager in the sense that it's sort of pragmatic reasoning and so on, thinking about where different things lead. And so with that said, everyone acknowledges that there are problems with Pascal's wager because there are all sorts of weird things. One, it seems to rely on what's called doxastic voluntarism, meaning you could just decide what to believe. And you can just decide based on outcomes and stuff. And it's kind of, reality's not like that. I couldn't right now just decide to believe in Islam. I just couldn't. So anyway, it's just like, there are certain things that are not just completely under the control of your will. So there's that. Then he's assuming that there's a 50-50 chance of
that was my problem with it.
Yeah, 50-50 chance on whether God exists and so on. And I mean, who's starting off like that? It's not a coin flip starting off with whether God exists or doesn't exist. Someone might be like, I'm like 99% sure God doesn't exist, or someone might. Anyway, the point is, who's starting off like that to where if you have a coin flip situation, yeah, you can decide, you might be able to decide based on just pragmatic considerations and so on. Okay, well, this would be better for this reason. So you've got that it's this 50, you've got that it's this sort of 50-50 scenario. And then he also includes the element in there, so if you decide to go with God, then you gain eternity. It's like, wait a minute, no, there's a lot more than just believing in God that would be connected to whether you get eternal life or something like that. It's not just believing in God. So it's more than that. So anyway, there are all these problems that everyone acknowledges. With that said, it does make perfect sense to factor into what you're believing, the implications and the impact and so on, all the pragmatic. It makes sense to take those things into consideration in your reasoning. So in other words, that's not the problem with Pascal's wager. The problems with Pascal's wager are some of these other things.
Yeah. The thing is, I think that the way Pascal's wager was presented to me, and that I kind of went into it for much of the time was that it focused on what if not, or what if, and I don't even know, honestly. I don't even remember if that part is actually part of the actual argument. But is it, David?
Which part?
What if God exists, or what if God does not exist?
Pascal. See, here's the thing. Pascal's one of the pioneers of probability theory, right? And I think it was started as like how to solve like little issues in gambling or something like that. And so it kind of takes off. And it was said at the time when people actually started understanding probability that if you took one person who actually understood probability and transported him back to the Roman Empire, he could have taken over the entire Roman Empire just by betting and stuff like that, by understanding basic probability. So people become really, really interested in probability. What Pascal does as one of the pioneers of probability is just say, hey, why don't you think about this? Because he's thinking about, lots of people are thinking about probability in terms of gambling. So it gets presented as a wager. And it's actually simple. I mean, just imagine it. Imagine a roulette wheel. Imagine a roulette wheel. Not even like a real roulette wheel will have black, white, and then a couple of green. But just imagine it's 50-50. It's all either black or red. And it's going to be one or the other, and it's 50-50. Now imagine you get to place a bet. And if you vote red and you're right and you win nothing. You don't get anything. But if you bet on black and you get an infinite amount of money. It's basically that situation that he's pointing out with, hey, if you go with this and you're right and you have eternity to gain, why would you not go with that? If you're right because you bet on red and you win nothing, How in the name of common sense, from the perspective of a gambler? In other words, Pascal's wager is like a gambler's dream. I make a bet. It's a coin flip of whether I win or lose. If I win, I get everything. If I lose, I haven't lost anything, because it was all pointless to begin with. If God doesn't exist, it didn't really matter in the end. So all I can do is win eternity, and I lose nothing. That's like a gambler's dream. And that's kind of what he's pointing out. In reality, he's just trying to warm people up to the idea of being more favorable to thinking about the implications of having an infinite payoff in a bet would be a dream scenario to a gambler. He's saying, why don't you incorporate some of that into your thinking about God? Like, hey, there are huge things to be gained if this is true. So why don't you think about it a little more carefully?
Well, the reason why I'm asking is the reason why I said that, or why I asked about that aspect, is that to me, Pascal's wager was often very, very unappealing. Aside from finding it logically problematic, it was also unappealing to me because it was very much about what you gain or what you lose. And to me, still, as we speak right now, it never has been about that. So the whole aspect of afterlife and eternity and all that, in all honesty, I don't think what will happen to me in the afterlife has had a little bit of an impact on whether on my decision or on my eventual state of believing in God or believing in Christianity. I don't really take that into consideration, and I'm not saying that because I want to be special or anything. I don't know. I never really thought. I never really think about the whole afterlife aspect of it. I still don't think about it very, very much. Maybe this is a flaw. I don't know, but it doesn't really mean much to me. And
so you can
gain or what you lose.
You cannot be impressed by that. Yeah, you can be not impressed by that, and you could formulate it completely differently. Like, okay, if suppose it's a coin flip. So keep in mind, some diehard atheist is never going to be convinced by this argument, right? Because the diehard atheist isn't granting 50-50 chance of this being true and so on. But this is basically most effective for people. There are people who are just, I don't know, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. I don't know. I don't really know. Yeah, I see why you're arguing this. I see why you're claiming this is true, but maybe it's not true. People in that kind of situation, like, I don't know, might be true, might not be true. Those kinds of people, hey, think about the implications of this. But yeah, AP, it wouldn't have to be think about the implications for your eternal state. Could just be think about the implications for your life right now, if this is actually true. Your life right now would be massively improved and massively better if you believe in the truth.
So somebody who was that isn't the afterlife the main point, though, said Forest Dweller. This is still a question that I have big problems with, because to me, honestly, it is not. I don't know what else to say when people ask this or when I'm confronted with this issue. I know that to lots of people, and maybe this is also the main point of much of the Bible or much of the biblical message, which is to eternal life, or life after death and all that, or death. I don't know why. Maybe it's a flaw about me. I don't know, but I to me, it's not the motivator. It does not motivate me. And I think about the afterlife, or for years I have thought about the afterlife only in one regard, which was about it was more about logic and about justice. Whether it makes sense that God would put humans to test and then eternally reward or eternally punish, or eternally, if you don't want to say it's reward or punishment, or eternally give them bliss, or eternally leave them in a state of torment. So the only in that regard was that question ever relevant to my thinking when it came to the question of God. It was never really relevant to my afterlife, to, oh no, what happens if I die and there is God, or what happens if I die and there is no God. I never really thought about that. It's a justice matter. Even right now, as we speak, one of the main questions that I had as I was going into Christianity was, I ask my own priest and others in the church and people who are in the position of educating me on these matters about the question of God's justice for all humanity. And I think I have gotten satisfying answers. And at this point, what I think about it is that I have faith and hope in the eternal wisdom and in the unlimited, infinite mercy of God. This answers my questions about God's justice in the afterlife. Do I think about it in terms of my own afterlife, my own eternity? Not really. And you might think that's weird. I agree.
No, Afterlife played no role in my conversion either. It was,
See,
am I wrong? If I'm wrong about my position, and that is leading me to live like this, and there's something true, and I should be living a different way. I want to know that. I want to know that if there is some actual truth about the way I'm supposed to be living and so on, I want to know that. And so that's what it was. It wasn't, oh yeah, and I'll get to spend eternity in heaven or something like that.
powerful, powerful, powerful. That said, to answer the question, actually, would I nowadays still think that Pascal's wager is foolish? No, because I was often, when I was responding to things, even up until months ago, responding with great arrogance, honestly. So today, if you ask me about Pascal's wager, I would say it doesn't personally appeal to me. That said, it could help others. So I don't know. Sprinkles, how can you now believe that ancient, unsubstantiated claims about supernatural events are true? I thought you were better than that.
Yeah, you just have to believe in what I say. Now you disagree with me. You're supposed to just believe everything Dawkins says and all their unsubstantiated claims about how the universe got here and how life formed and how consciousness arose and every other thing that makes absolutely no sense on atheism. And you're just supposed to mindlessly accept it, because then if you don't, then you'll be religious, and we won't like that. Hail apostate Aladdin.
Powerful. So here's the thing, Sprinkles. You might think that my response to you is very, very mean and all that, but what you don't realize is that what you're doing here is simply patronizing and expecting that I conform to whatever you think.
I thought you were better than that. Better. And by better, I mean, why can't everyone just be like me, Sprinkles?
We atheists are much more intelligent than all you other stupid people. We got it all figured out. So why can't you just be like us?
I'm the Sprinkles. I got named after what guys leave around the toilet when they sprinkle, but I know everything, and you're wrong, and I don't like it because everyone in the entire universe has to revolve around me.
Dude, grow up.
Grow up.
Yeah,
Grow up.
Sprinkles, get used to it. You guys had your, keep in mind, for many years, I talked about atheism here and there. I focused on Islam. I wanted you guys to be able to run your little experiment. I believe when people have some really, really dumb ideas, they just have to see the consequence. They can't get the dumb idea out of their head until they actually run it as like an experiment and see what happens. You guys had your little experiment of, hey, if millions and millions of people become atheists, the world would become better and more scientific and more rational, and the universe will be so much better if tons of people become atheists. Okay, that happened. What happened? People went insane instantly. Societies are actually collapsing right now. You didn't get any sort of scientific utopia. You didn't get any closer to one. So guess what? You made your predictions. Your predictions all failed. Now people are giving up on that. It's becoming less of a live option for people. So get used to it. It was a stupid position, and it's been exposed as stupid.
You have stolen my dreams.
Yep. Nobody cares. Sprinkle.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's why we had to sprinkle a little knowledge on you.
Yeah. Get some sprinkle of humility, Sprinkle, from the most humble.
There you go. You have to be miserable with us.